They only came in the name of, they didn't come in the name of righteousness, they came in the name of their country. They did not come in the name of righteousness. So it was not about God, it was not about setting God's people free. It was about employing an American strategy. And this employment of an American strategy rescued South Africans that were in flight from the grain, the structure that was hurting us. That's why it wasn't a holy presence. Its intervention was not for righteous purposes. It was for its own best interests. But because of its own best interests, by collateral benefit, we were able to stop running. Yeah, by collateral benefit, we were able to stop running as those that were fleeing. So when I tell you that I'm not going to get rescued out of this because Christians did a better thing about my life, when I tell you that I'm not going to get out of this because the body of Christ decided that Karabo should not be getting hurt like this, it's the truth. I'm going to get set free by America. And not because America is out there looking out for my case and they feel so bad for me. I'm going to get set free by collateral benefit. In my dream, the people who were able to find peace and rest were me and two other people with whom I was running. One of them was a Christian, I believe, because they were wearing white robes, but the other one was just a civilian. Basically, the thing that this cult in South Africa is so taxing on everybody that when the US makes a decision to basically embark on a certain strategy concerning their international policy, it's going to set a whole bunch of people across the world free. I told you, a whole syndicate in Africa is going to be unraveled. And this is going to loose the corsets and the bra straps of many people, including saints. So I'm going to get my own. I'm going to get my life restored. I'm going to get recovered because the US is presently investigating some syndicate in Africa that is going to unravel it. It's going to rip it apart. And so what blockages that you're seeing against my person are going to be lifted because the blockages against so very many other people are going to be lifted. Just ubiquitously. It's not the first time I have seen myself get rescued by unbelievers. And these unbelievers are always wearing black clothes, evidencing that they're unrighteous. It's not about God. It's about some other mission that, however, also sets me free. So in speaking about that, it brings me to the topic of the fact that it appears as if though the prophecy that I gave caught, but didn't catch. It appears as if though the prophecy that I gave about TikTok, it appears as if though the prophecy that I gave about TikTok didn't stick. Remember, I said that ByteDance as a company is going to die. And I said that that's going to happen because America's going to ban TikTok. And so as a result, ByteDance is going to slowly but surely wither away. Well, it literally came to pass. They banned ByteDance, not ByteDance, but TikTok on American platforms. It caused Americans to move over to Red Note. It was like a whole thing. Like Americans reacted in the run-up to after the Supreme Court in the US made that decision. They decided that they're going to move over to China. Some platform they called Xianzheng, whatever, I don't know. And this platform, it was their retaliation. It caused a whole bunch of Americans to out here start praising the communist country that is China, and to call America fascist against them, to take away their TikTok, to take away their freedoms, their businesses are going to be frozen shut. Basically, there was just a whole bunch of lashback by Americans in the run-up to when the notice was given them that the platform is going to disappear off the American service. And this was to happen on Sunday, the 19th of January, one day before the inauguration of Donald Trump. I did believe that Donald Trump would be the one to ban TikTok because that's what I saw in my dreams, that Trump would be the one to ban TikTok. But it wasn't the Trump administration. It was the Supreme Court, who have got a separation of powers from the executive, just like in most countries. And so it wasn't necessarily even the decision of Biden. It was an independent inquiry that was enforced by the judiciary of the United States of America. And they did this based on the national interest of the US of A. Also based on federal investigations that have been done by America on the national security threat that China is in utilizing ByteDance, that platform, in order to basically infiltrate the US and to proliferate particular agendas, and also to gain state secrets or whatever on the platform, like proper. It is a propaganda tool, and it is a cyber weapon. TikTok is a cyber weapon against America. Like, I cannot say that enough. And like proper, you know, when you are ignorant, you don't see things from the vantage point of law, order, policy, national policy. You just see things from the vantage point of it's a lollipop and I'm gonna eat it because I'm hungry, right? But you know how in the fairy tale, the other day I did a whole series on fairy tales and spoke about how it is that they must have been manufactured in a cauldron, right? But you know how in the fairy tale, is it Little Red Riding Hood, the wolf out here feeds the living daylights out of Little Red Riding Hood, or is it the grandmother or whatever, for no other purpose but to make her fat so he can eat her? Like, proper TikTok is that thing. Or to America, it is either who's the one that gets fat to be eaten? Is it Little Red Riding Hood or her grandmother? I think the grandmother gets eaten first, and then the wolf actually realizes that Little Red Riding Hood is nice and skinny, and so because, I think Little Red Riding Hood finds out that her grandmother has been eaten, and she takes the grandmother's place and gives the wolf a stick instead of her hand so as to make herself skinny, and then the wolf just keeps on bringing her all these delicacies to eat so she can get fat, so he can finally satiate his hunger concerning her. Yeah, TikTok on American platforms is literally a cyber weapon. It is a strategy. Do you understand what I'm saying? To make America fat so China can eat it. It is this place of infiltrating the US to get America to die. Look, I'm South African, and I ought not give too very many hoots about what happens in America, except I would be ignorant to say that. I am living in a country that is tapering dangerously close to being a despotic sovereign against its citizens because of its collaboration and coalition, therefore, with countries that are sovereign dictates over their people. South Africa has got eerily strong relationships with countries that are dictators, with countries whose leaders are dictators. Xi Jinping, Vladimir Putin, and now, well, it used to be, now it's Ayatollah Khamenei, Iran. Basically, that whole BRICS alliance is of countries, except maybe for Brazil, whose leaders are not the best of men over their citizens. Even the Modi of India is not the best over his citizens, okay? There are indiscretions on the part of leaders in those countries. It's like they have no regard for democracy. And South Africa, birds of a feather flock together. Bad company corrupts good character. Not that South Africa has ever been good, but, well, it was at some point to a certain extent. But it's like this influenced baby, and out of the whole BRICS alliance, I would go so far as to say South Africa is literally the infant, okay? It is the infant, and when you are growing up as one little, toddler kid amidst teenage gang boys, you're gonna look up to your teenage gang mafia boys. So your country is going to increasingly become what they are. And many of the countries that South Africa is affiliated with are socialistic and communistic, even though we claim to be a democracy. Much of our wokeness is inherited from America. However, we are strangely also tapering dangerously close to socialistic waters. We also have got this ridiculous Robert Mugabe-esque or Mugabe-esque government that wants to claim that we've been getting a brand spanking new change of president, like changing underwear every day after taking a shower, every 4 years or every 8 years, depending on how long or how many terms the sitting president serves. We would like to believe that we've been changing leadership, but we haven't. Literally, Mandela is on the throne. The ANC is this leading party in the country that nobody will abandon, and it is becoming increasingly crazy. And everybody that spawns from the ANC, like the EFF, Julius Malema, is also satanic. Oh, Julius Malema is racist. There's no taking him seriously. I recently came to learn that some member of the EFF left for Jesus Christ. Praise the Lord, hallelujah, brother man, right? But Julius Malema is socialistic in the worst way. If you just listen to his rhetoric, you will figure it out. And socialism is not healthy. So in the Bible, in the Acts of the Apostles, we know that it was all about sharing your resources with one another and enabling the cause along of your fellow man. But the scriptures make it clear that if anybody does not want to eat, let them not. No, if anybody does not want to work, let them not eat. So Christ was not a socialist, and neither were the apostles. They were all about a camaraderie, a community of contributors to an ecosystem where it is that when you work, you earn your keep. So Christ was not entirely a capitalist, but he was neither socialistic. He was all about creating a harmony in earn your keep. If you contribute, you eat. If you don't contribute, you don't eat. He was entirely against people just juicing a system, sitting around gathering dust. And a socialistic system is one that rewards at the expense of the hardworking, even those who are not doing anything at all or pulling their weight, in exchange for wide-range protections, peace, policing, making sure that everybody gets to school, you eradicate homelessness and whatnot. But when you have a situation of that nature, you also then can create dictators who, because they are out here feeding your every whim, and because of them there's no homelessness in your country, because of them there's no what do you call this, hunger, barely any. Yeah, you are also, because of them, everybody has got access to medical care, blah, blah, blah. You are also creating a person who can give that kind of service to their fellow man on the ground. So any leader that can give that kind of support to any man on the ground, given that they're not been omnibenevolent like the Lord, when they're in a position to allot resources, they can then start to weaponize resources in order to create an even grander fascism or despotism against the people on the ground, in the sense that they can make a decision that, okay, so we're going to use the resources we have amassed as the state to distribute evenly to our citizens to control how in the world and the heaven it is that they live. So taking away of rights and freedoms and then hooking up the ridiculous system, China, for instance, social credit score, where it is that you can literally be banned from applying for a spot at a university because you jaywalked. It's ridiculous. So socialism produces despotism and sovereign and a sovereign later on, because we're dealing with mere mortal men who out here get absolute power and so get corrupted absolutely. And we're also dealing with the wealthy subsidizing the poor, and also we're getting the hardworking subsidizing the lazy, the complacent, the la-di-da. Not just people on disability because they can't work, but people who literally just don't want to work. They just want to keep on smoking blunts all day long. Get covered under the socialistic system. America has a component of socialism in them called welfare. And it's quite ridiculous, frankly. And I told you, Donald Trump is going to squelch it. He's going to significantly reduce the powers of welfare in order to get Americans off their buttocks and to get them to work, because the country in totality is a capitalistic state, but it's got welfare nuances, and these welfare nuances are literally eating the country whole like gangrene. Okay, who beans and bananas. So given that in a socialistic country there are these issues that can also create a sovereign dictator, my country, South Africa, given that it's got all its role models and its big daddies in these like crazy little sovereign dictates, North Korea might not be part of BRICS. I mean, they're a pariah. They're an international pariah, but we all know that North Korea and China are like bosom buddies, like the same thing. I mean, if at all a North Korea defector goes to goes to Shanghai, if they go to Beijing, they're gonna get sent back to Pyongyang. They're gonna get sent back to North Korea. So defectors out of North Korea cannot go to China. They can only go to South Korea, because China will literally just send them back. So while North Korea might be a pariah, it's not really, because it is able to operate on a global scale and participate in global everything through China. China's like its mediator. So basically, North Korea and China are like pretty much the same thing, and South Africa is therefore also affiliated with North Korea by mere virtue, literally guilty by association, by mere virtue of being affiliated with China. Okay, listen, China is a superpower. China is a superpower, and it is, I mean, I stand corrected as to what's bigger between Russia and China, but I do know that the European Union, the European nations, Great Britain, superpower, China, superpower, Russia, superpower, America, the superpower with a capital T. Okay, so it's like the biggest one, right, across them all. Now, out of these superpowers, China is a nuclear state. So too is Russia, a nuclear state. America, of course. And then, of course, the European Union with all of its arsenal, nuclear states. North Korea, not a superpower, but I told you it's as good as China. So, but it is a nuclear state. Now, South Africa, please, we've got like one little gun, and that's all that we got going down for ourselves. So we're not a nuclear state, but we're as good as. Because we're affiliated with Russia, nuclear state. We're affiliated with China, nuclear state, right? And with China being the superpower that it is, and being as gargantuan as it is, and being basically, I believe it's like number 2 to America. I have already done a video speaking about this, and right now it's almost 5 a.m. in the morning, and I'm not trying to actually elaborate on this at too much length, but let's get into it ever so briefly. Mr. Ping has got ambitions, and he's had ambitions, him and the CCP, basically anybody that is a leader before him, and the one that will come after him. It's like they carry the same baton. Do you understand what I'm saying? And the attempt here is to be a global superpower. The attempt here is to be a global superpower. It's to take over America, right? It's to replace the US. Do away with the reserve, with the US being the reserve currency. Now, because America is so free and democratic, while China is kind of low-key despotic, it's draconian in how it runs its citizens. Every so often, it is in disagreement with the policies of China. America is, of course, presently in disagreement with what's going on with Russia because of what happened in the Ukraine. America, of course, has sanctioned heavily North Korea, and then Iran too. Heavy sanctions, but you know that nuclear deal, don't nobody know what's going on with it anymore. Like, Papa, I told you there are better people to talk about current events. But and then South Africa is not a nuclear state. Like I said, we've got one little gun, right? Like, we don't have much of an arsenal. Apparently we don't have many enemies, but I'm an enemy of South Africa. Like, I've defected, so I don't know why they think they don't have enemies. They're crazy. Maybe that's why Batella chi din mahagan. But anyway, whatever. Right? South Africa has enemies out of the rest of Africa. It's arrogant that way, and one of these days it's going to be overrun, but let's just move on. Okay, cool beans and bananas, right? With China being wanting to be a superpower, America, being the democratic country that it is, of course disagrees with some of the things that are happening that are very unconstitutional or inhumane, humanitarian crises happening in North Korea, and Xi Jinping's clear adoring relationship with Kim Jong-un. I mean, it's clear that they're like bosom buddies or whatever. The support of President Xi to Russia after the thing that happened over there in the Ukraine. The power plays that are busy exchanging notes like kids cribbing off each other in class, happening amidst these nuclear nations that are, however, with limited respect for human rights, is something that will always grate the US of A. Okay? It is something that will always cause this global superpower that can intervene on behalf of bereft souls that are mistreated by their crazy countries that have no respect for the human being's essence and the sacredcy of human life. Yeah, that lament by America against random strange behavior against citizens by countries like Russia, by countries like China, and by countries like North Korea, Iran, I could go on, will always grate the living daylights out of these superpowers that are China and everything. Because the US laments against human rights indiscretions across the world, it, upon people not taking it seriously when it won't stop treating people that way, then sanctions. And when you are sanctioned using the US dollar, you either can't trade or you are charged heinous amounts in order to do basic transactions. And that can really cripple or decimate an economy in one fashion or form. Well, we all know what the US did to sanction the living daylights out of Russia. We also know that the US every so often sanctions China, North Korea, etc. for random strange stuff. Recently, there's been threats on South Africa because of the BRICS alliance and the attempt to demote the US dollar by creating alternative forms for the reserve currency of the planet, right? They're trying to come up with some other currency in order to trade so as to limit the range of the range of effects on their economies, right? These sanctions can be quite taxing on their economies and thwart a whole bunch of economic progress that these countries are trying to achieve, right? So now they want to move away from the dollar. And Donald Trump was like, you want to move away from the dollar, you're going to have to give me your people, blah, blah, blah. We're going to have a better deal. Otherwise, I'm going to keep on charging you a heinous amount of money in order for you to do basic things with America. Okay, cool. So that's what's going on. So now they want independence from the dollar so they can basically commit international crimes against citizens on the ground, against civilians of countries on the ground without having to bear the economic consequences of US sanctions. That's a very crazy long story that is big and chunky and beefy cut short, okay? They are trying to limit what the US dollar means for their economies when they commit crimes against humanity. Thank you. Like proper, I am summarizing this in a way that seems almost simplistic, but that's exactly what it is. These countries want to commit crimes against their citizens, operate despotic sovereigns on the ground with limited economic consequences. And so they are now trying to move away from the dollar. Alright, now listen to this, right? If at all Xi Jinping succeeded, for instance, I mean, Russia, with the state that it's in right now, granted the war in the Ukraine, is in no position to take over America as a superpower. Plus, it's just not as big as China, like in terms of much of its trade, right? Cool. So China's the one that we all are actually looking at as the next best thing to replace America, and that's why the US is up in arms about it concerning that. Like with this thing with TikTok, you know, when you are not educated or learned on what's going on in your country down below, you will be upset at things like a TikTok ban because you're like a child on that day whose parents restrict how much ice cream you can eat because they don't want you getting cavities and fat. You just want your ice cream, but but you don't see the bigger picture of your dad and your mom. You don't see the bigger picture. There are people who put their ears on the ground who do thorough, deep investigations. And when national security is under threat, when a country is facing death or infiltration or devastation, disaster, when a country is facing all that, there are people who are aware very acutely as to that threat and how imminent it is. And they can't just quickly employ decisions on the ground that are going to fix it, because it's going to affect citizens on the ground that lack understanding. And there is nothing worse than a disquieted populace, okay? That Archie is rioting, throwing their toys out the cart, Archie pulling out their hairs, plucking them out like their brows. So basically what I'm getting at is that the ban of TikTok is a gargantuan wake-up call to never mind Americans, but American leadership, right? But let me get to the point, to the situation that I'm trying to get at right now. Xi Jinping, China. If China succeeds to fatten Little Red Riding Hood until he can eat her, and therefore in the unlikely, and it is also an impossible situation where China is going to end up the global superpower, it's not going to happen because Bible prophecy says nothing of that nature. The next superpower is going to be in Europe, probably. Not probably, definitely. The revived Roman Empire. America is going to fall, but not yet, okay? And power is going to go over to Europe for God's purposes, but and the reason why it's going to go over to Europe for God's purposes is because God is going to restrict the strength and the scope and the reach and the pull of, what do you call this, of China. The only reason why God is going to keep China strong is for that battle of Armageddon, those kings of the East, the Kim Jong-un and them. They got to stay strong for no other reason but to indeed successfully round up the battle of Armageddon conglomerate. But they're never going to be a superpower. The last superpower of the world is going to be in Europe. It's going to go back to Europe. The revived Roman Empire. If anything, America is currently an extension of the revived Roman Empire, but it's going to go back to the actual location that is in Europe. Okay? But anyway, let's just go back straight to the point that we're talking about over here, right? If China, not in the unlikely, in the impossible, but we're creating a scenario here. If China were to succeed to fatten Little Red Riding Hood until she is edible, and so therefore take over the superpower status, just like South Africa, who is this confused little child that is not sure if she is American or she is Chinese, because South Africa is both woke and communist all in one sitting. It can't make its own decisions, okay? Like proper. Whatever is going on in South Africa would never fly in China. Just in terms of policy. We're too uncatering to the country to be communistic truly. Like, only go look at our post office. Only go look at our, just public services in South Africa are so crappy that they are a far cry from China. But also, the voice of the people, democracy, and freedom is so divorced from the reality of what the Constitution says we actually deserve. That we are practically a country that's dealing with a sovereign, a despot, a Robert Mugabe that's however been proliferated through one party. So it looks like it's been changing, but we've had the same president for 30 years. That's South Africa. So South Africa is both a combination of a little mini China and a little mini America. It's weird that way. It's torn. South Africa is a little mini democracy and a little mini sovereign dictatorship. That doesn't look that way though on paper. In the same way that China claims to have freedoms of religion and yet Archie is writing people's Bibles. Right, cool beans and bananas. So if South Africa could be confused between communism and capitalism, and if South Africa could be confused between sovereignty and the freedom of choice and expression, all that jazz on the part of the citizens, then you must understand that the influence that South Africa has suffered under China and Russia and basically all these countries that rule with an iron fist, being the only apparent liberated country, like truly liberated country, amidst the BRICS conglomerate with Brazil, right? Brazil and South Africa are like the most sort of free countries out of all of BRICS. India has got restrictions that are ridiculous too. What do you call it? And again, there's additions, right? I believe they added Ethiopia, Egypt, what else did they add the other day? Saudi Arabia or whatever. And even with those additions, we know that South Africa and Brazil are still by far the most free of the BRICS countries, but they're also small. They're also the smallest and the least economically strong. And they're both emerging markets. So they don't have the kind of clout that China and Russia has. Very cool and beans and bananas, okay? You are therefore going to be as good as your big daddy. So if you are a little toddler that is in a gang of teenagers, you're going to aspire to be like the teenagers. And that's why South Africa is ditching and twitching and Archie coughing out blood in the climate of being big daddied by these countries, while also, however, being extremely influenced by America. It's very heavily influenced by America, especially considering some of the South African exiles during apartheid lived in America, like Miriam Makeba. right? So South Africa has a very strong American influence, but it is starting to divorce itself from America, and it's starting to make itself at enmity with America, and it is also going at enmity with Israel. It is making alliances with structures across the world that are generally considered despotic and ridiculous. It's choosing the wrong side. That's why I gotta go. I've been saying that for a minute. When I Lady Pandemonium balloon, I keep them. I keep calling Lady Pandemonium because literally she's causing pandemonium. Okay, cool beans and bananas. If South Africa could be this terribly influenced by the sovereign that is China. If China became a global superpower, again, look also at America. America is not the best of countries, please. Like, they export a whole bunch of trash. That's why God is out here burning the living daylights out of California. Okay, because of America, however, we are extremely influenced as the global citizenship. They have exported so much culture to us. We have inherited much of their everything, like their fashion sense, their wada fish paste, because they're a global superpower. Long story short, where there is a global superpower, there is global influence. And we as a global citizenship will inherit all of its random nuances, whether or not we like it, because they're like a subliminal messenger while we sleep. We're gonna wake up out here talking American all the way from South Africa. We won't care, okay? Because they're that influential. The entertainment industry has created grooves of debauchery in the whole planet, because that's how influential they are. But similarly too, have their schools influenced what we study, what we learn, what we consider to be worthwhile degrees to pursue, blah, blah, blah. The US has been a cultural overdose on all of us, and we are spazzing on the floor, foaming at the mouths, red, blue, and white. We have overkilled on American culture as a global citizenship to a point where everybody's American even though they're not. Let's just put that out there. Most people can easily acclimatize to American culture moving from their countries, whereas a lot of people from there in America will struggle to acclimatize to our cultures. It's because they have influenced all of us. Cool. Because they're a superpower. That's what happens when you're a superpower. You influence the world. Now imagine if China was a superpower. They are an atheist communistic country that has driven its church underground. And they are socialistic in a way that looks very seemly on the surface. Everything is clean and pretty. Until you discover the concentration camps where they keep Muslims. Until you discover the underground church and the fact that they're trying to rewrite the Christian Bible. Until you discover that they bring down crosses from atop their cathedrals. Until you find out that this is just like a crazy place. And they keep locking people down even when the whole planet is done locking the world down. Something's going on in this crazy place. And it might look good on paper, and when you're a guest, when you're a tourist over there, it's all cute, because they're going to treat you like a tourist. But my oh my, stay there and see how fluid your life is and how free everything is. I mean, the other day I was watching a video of some chick in China speaking about how the Chinese social credit system is amazing because it influences her to be a better person. Talk about dystopian, Pavlovian model of classical conditioning, after salivating after credits in your social credit score, even when there is no reward for it, because after all, your freedoms have been robbed. They're Pavlov's dogs just walking around like mindless drones, and they are extremely militant even in their workforce, and that's why everything of theirs is so pristine. But there is no liberty. If you come from another country and you go live there, you would feel it. You would feel it. But from a distance, it just looks so incredibly well put together. And then on top of that, their leader is excruciatingly despotic. He bans things just because they made him feel uncomfortable. I found out the other day that apparently he banned Winnie the Pooh because somebody compared, there was a trend on social media that he looked like Winnie the Pooh. So he literally banned Winnie the Pooh. Uping, Ushi Jinping. That's China for you, okay? But when you don't educate yourself on these things, when you don't know them, which the regular lay citizen, lay Joe, lay Jane on the ground don't, you're gonna actually lament and throw your toys at the cot and cry those like cartoony tears that come out like rain on the side when they take away your precious chick dog, when you don't realize that that's the chocolate that the wolf is feeding you to make you fat. It's a spy balloon. It's a giant social media spy balloon. Like, it is a spy balloon over American airspace that nobody's doing anything about. It is a cyber weapon against America. But citizens on the ground have been acclimatized to it, and they've been made juiced, like nicely, like they've literally been classically conditioned. They've been made like mindless drones, like George Orwell's 1984. Everybody's like a zombie walking around inside TikTok. I told you that stuff is like dangerous and satanic. I stopped using TikTok because I felt like I was being possessed by it. It's like Pokemon, okay? I told you guys it's like Pokemon and Dragon Ball Z and Tamagotchi. Problematic. Anyway, whatever. Cool. So we're dealing with Tamagotchi out in these streets, but like on a global scale. What? Like Asian countries be actually producing things that have magic in them. Y'all know. It's been if you are my age, 1984, you will remember the Tamagotchi. That toy was evil. It was evil. And then there were the Pogs, also from China. Remember Pogs? Pogs, absolute addiction. It was ridiculous. Chinese. Now, let me not say Chinese, Asian. Okay, I stand corrected as to which Asian country, whether it was Japan or China, or basically it's like dragon magic is all up in there. The Pogs actually mesmerized, putting in a trance children in my primary school, and I was among them. I was a mindless drone. 1984, George Orwell. Tamagotchi, 1984, George Orwell, also from Asia. And then high school, Pokemon, also from Asia. Stand corrected where exactly, but an Asian country. And then Dragon Ball Z, later on. Those things were enchanting. There was something in them that was like kind of magical. It like drew you in. You could not help but be glued to the screens. Like Papa, I remember students at Wits University in the Matrix encircled around Pokemon, quiet for that half an hour. And when it was done, they stood up like nothing happened. It's like they were scattered, almost like magnets, like iron fillings around a magnet. And then they removed the magnetic pull and everything just falls apart. After it was over, that's how they scattered from the TV. Go the Matrix. Magic. Satan. And now when you are inside TikTok, it's Dragon Ball Z all over again. I kid you not, it's a Pog. You're playing Pogs, you're playing Tamagotchi. You are busy feeding that little thing that when it dies, you are just getting a hebatum. Do you remember that Tamagotchi sent some children to the ER? Because they had depression because their little Tamagotchis that they had kept alive for 30 days died because they pooped on themselves. If that thing lost battery power, your Tamagotchi dies and your kid has a psychotic episode. And then there was Pokemon. Now there is Pokemon, Tamagotchi, Dragon Ball Z right inside TikTok. I mean, you remember that those crazy freaky NPCs were only on TikTok, right? Probably they started there. Anybody out there doing NPCs on YouTube? Yeah. But they're doing it on TikTok and they're making a whole bunch of money. It's this robotic, satanized, weird, freaky little dragon magic joint that once you're in there, can't nobody move. Can't nobody move. However, if you've got the Spirit of God, when you leave TikTok, you have a feeling of foreboding. And that is the reason. Like, no, not when you leave. When you're inside it, there is a sense of foreboding. Hence why so many Christians, albeit having literally thousands, hundreds of thousands of followers on TikTok, take a break from it. They leave it. It's like there is something so satanic about the platform that I know of one Christian that goes there just to dump their content and get out. They go there just to reach an audience, but they don't watch anything on TikTok because there is something satanic and pulling that is enchanting. It is mesmerizing about TikTok. That's why I stopped watching it. I would watch it addictively so. And then feel this like overwhelming sense of foreboding afterwards for the rest of the day. And as soon as I severed that nasty off, like proper taking out a tumor out of my body or whatever, I was not suffering from the same level of melancholy and just like a maintained ebb and flow all the day long of TikTok fever. Yeah, took me a minute to overcome that addiction. Mara, tada TikTok, and it's not even problematic anymore in the sense that it's got these little short videos are like 1 minute long. They've also increased duration, so you can watch a video for like 5 minutes now, for like up to an hour now. But nonetheless, you still stick onto it. Why do you think that TikTok followers, people when they go to TikTok, they literally amass for themselves these crazy followers, like 10 million. Like, it's ridiculous. Like, you be getting a person that has 100,000 subscribers on YouTube getting a good, cool, like 15 million followers on TikTok. It's ridiculous. There is something about that platform that's just flat out Tamagotchi-ic. Satanic. Anyway, whatever, that there is a speculation and a conspiracy. It's not necessarily a prophecy. I'm just, running on my own, what is this, observations type establishment thing. So now, if at all TikTok is Tamagotchi for real, if it's really Pokemon, like for real, it means that the global citizenship is glued to those screens like kids in university, glued strangely to a cartoon for half an hour without moving, even though they can't concentrate in lectures. There is something mesmerizing in a drone-like capacity that's magical, that is actually literally hypnotizing whatever population is on there. What the heck? TikTok is international. What the heck? It's in South Africa. Yo, it's all over Africa. It's all over South America. And of course in America. If they succeed to mindless drone all of us across the world with this cray-cray platform, not only are they going to fatten Little Red Riding Hood of America, they're going to fatten African Red Riding Hood. They're going to fatten South American Red Riding Hood. They're going to fatten all of Asia. The rest of it. They're going to fatten Europe. And then China's going to finally be a superpower. Through this one little crazy, guys, TikTok is one platform out of all the social media platforms on earth. And the majority of the social media platforms of the planet dwell in America. And yet look at the influence and the strides that it is making. It's ridiculous. It's magical. It's frankly satanic. Now that we've put that out there, this cyber weapon, when it was switched off from the global superpower for, I came to learn, just a mere 13 hours, I was so bereft with disappointment. Because I want it gone. It persecutes the body of Christ, and like I said, it's Pokemon. Ain't nobody trying to sit in front of that for 30 minutes without figuring out why. You can't even find out what the answer is for that differential calculus equation, and yet you're concentrating on Pokemon like you're 5 years old. Relax. If at all TikTok can enchant and entrance America is going to slowly but surely get juiced and sapped until China becomes the beefy superpower that it is through this one weapon. Yes, it has many other weapons that it is using against America, but TikTok is a poignant one. It's a big one. It's a big one. It's a trance-inducing catatonizer, if you will. It's a coma inducer, I don't know. But when you take away and you dumb down the minds of the most innovative country in the world, you dumb down its industry and its trade. And you dumb down, therefore, what it can produce to thus be maintained as a global powerhouse. And fast forward a couple of years down the line, you are just getting innovations out of China that slay America. Listen, America is the thing that it is today because God made it the thing that it is today. Because it was a holy nation, it was a godly nation. After World War II, America's industry and trade burgeoned and bubbled because they fed the earth, okay? Throughout World War II. They actually fed in Europe in order to conquer Hitler and all those other forces. They fed them with their Nestle, with their a bird's-eyed fish, but that was from Canada, right? But then he moved to America, what have you. They fed them with their Coca-Cola. They fed them with their McDonald's. They fed them with their Burger King. They fed them when they were in war. And because of Europe's reliance on America for all of that girth and weight, in terms of feeding during World War II, America then took over the world superpower baton from Europe, right? Because it was basically just burgeoning trade and industry. God gave them all those ideas so they could become big and chunky, so the gospel could be proliferated across the world. I already shared a video of this nature. I spoke about it at length the other day, so really don't come at me like a cat prowling in the wilderness, trying to scratch your groovy nails into me. I'm not going to reiterate, but bottom line is God gave America wealth and innovation because it was holy. America is losing its je ne sais quoi concerning holiness. Let's put that out there. But still, there is no country in the world literally by a landslide that slays it in that regard. It's like literally choosing the lesser of two evils. Seeing as the world is so wicked in the last days and there is a great apostasy, the Lord is going to choose the country that is the path of, if at all he's going to linger this for any minute longer, 5 seconds longer, he's going to opt for the nation that is the best shot at evangelism across the world. He's going to salvage the country that has the best shot of maintaining the gospel across the world. And no, it's not China. I mean, literally by a landslide, by far, it's not China. China has only been made a superpower by God because it has to be strong for Armageddon. But it cannot take over the world. Not yet. Europe is going to take over the world in the Antichrist system and become super diabolical and make everybody take the mark of the beast. But before then, the US cannot fall. So unless the US has power grabbed from it, taken from it by Europe, China cannot overwhelm it. Do you understand what I'm saying? It's not unbiblical. It's just not prophetic for things to happen that way. So in then stating that China's little Dragon Ball Z app, otherwise known as TikTok, it has to die for America to live. Thank you. Chinese propaganda is not only being propagated into America to dial down American citizenship, but it's literally out here afflicting Africa. It's afflicting us. I mean, China is this country that wants to stand on its own version of morality, and yet it's proliferating so much debauchery on that platform. TikTok starts so many, ridiculous trends of a satanic licentious nature that, given that it would never allow its own citizens to do stuff like that, it says that it wants to make the world at its mercy. It says that China wants to make the world be at its mercy because it understands basic principles like masculinity of men is important and femininity of women is important, and a country that maintains that will always maintain strength. And so it is literally effeminizing the planet so it can be so strong, have such strong men, have such strong, intelligent women, such industrial women, that everywhere else where you look, everybody's gonna be fluffy and just kind of dropping the ball because the women are such harlots and the men are so fluffy, they're so effeminate, that if you can make the world like that, you literally make yourself a beefcake. So they're of course happy to help America along or maintain America along in its wokeism and its effeminizing of its men and its demoralizing of women, like the licentiousing up of women. I don't even know if that's a word, but basically just the hypersexualizing of its women. So we export this culture of loss of sex, loss of sensuality, loss of irresponsibility, dropping the ball on the basic household, family, and whatnot, and then also hypering the prospect of a weak little heel-wearing man to a point where China Aja looks at the Golden Globes, China Aja looks at the Grammys, China Aja looks at American entertainment and sees all these entertainers rocking up as men wearing big fat boovy balloon-looking dresses like Sam Smith. And even though Sam Smith is not American, he certainly is Aja hanging out, proliferating stuff in American culture. China is winning the masculinity war. You tell me, when was the last time you saw a man in China Aja rocking a boovy dress at some awards ceremony? Gudeng? Little Limala, it's all that very basic, Langudra. You're gonna get hurt something big. Alright, Dene, I need to start getting ready to go eat right now, because time is Aja flying by me, right by my nose, almost like it's a canary that's singing. Mamela. So with China doing this strange, odd, macabre thing, the Lord must necessarily kill ByteDance. It is important for the whole entire platform that is called TikTok to pass away from the world at large, because it's dulling down the planet, not just America. But the first to wake up from this deep slumber will be America. China's been trying for a minute, do you understand? Or Asia. It's been trying to take over the world for a minute. But it hasn't worked, and the only reason why the Lord has not allowed them to grow in fever and strength is because they've been trying to bewitch us with all their toys and all of their platforms now, social media. But they're also ungodly. They have not embraced Asia, that is largely the gospel. They have not embraced the gospel, except maybe for South Korea, but they have not embraced the gospel, and so therefore God will never ever allow them to be as strong as they could be if they loved God. Alright? Because they are using magic to try and take over the world instead of God. They're not using prayer to try and take over the world, unlike America. So even though America is not the most innocent of people in these streets, if we were to personify her, she is certainly the best option that we all got. And I've been saying that for a minute. You become your daddy, you become your mama, you become your big teenage brother. And America is presently our dad, our mom, and our big teenage brother. We are becoming her and inheriting all of her debauchery, but we're also inheriting her righteousness. If you inherit China's big mama, big daddy, big teenage brother syndrome, you are inheriting nothing but atheism and communism. There is no godliness. There is nothing good to take from China, is what I'm getting at. Except for maybe a hyper-industrialized society that is very robotic. But beyond that, nothing else. There is no righteousness that can be inherited from China. And so for those reasons, God must eliminate what it's trying to do on the earth. Thwart it. Much like the Illuminati Aja got thwarted a whole long time ago. Bunch of times. Like Pinky and the Brain, trying to take over the world, they fell apart. Similarly too with China. They cannot, for the life of them, be allowed to take the groove in the world that they're presently succeeding to take. Even standing in the back end, Aja supporting secretly Russia to wreak havoc in the Ukraine and Iran. God is looking at all of these. The Iran, Aja proliferating the proxies against Israel. You know how the Ring of Fire has been destroyed. Very soon Vladimir Putin is going to... I don't think Vladimir Putin is going to fail in his strategy in taking over the Ukraine. He probably is going to succeed, but then be so weakened that he is going to see it needful or necessary to Aja plunder Israel in that Gog and Magog war. But that's another story for another day. Okay, but China, the thing that it wants to do, it's going to fail like Pinky and the Brain. Aja trying to take over the world. But by the end of the night, fail abysmally due to the fact that if China succeeds, the world at large becomes so putrid and so atheistic and so communistic that it creates this dystopia that is very humanistic, and also this dystopia that is very, it's giving AI evolution, it's giving transhumanism. It's like proper, the world does not end because of transhumanism, the world ends because human beings become so crazy evil, that they then want to worship a mere mortal who's going to put a chip in their hand or the mark of the beast or whatever. And this mark of the beast is likely going to create transhumans, I don't know. But God ends it very swiftly within 3.5 years. So what China's trying to do is not going to be what takes us all over, okay? Very well. Now that we've said all that, let's just put this out there and highlight it. Seeing as ByteDance must perish, like it must pass away, it has got to breathe its last, like a fishy outside of the ocean with nobody putting it back in the water. It must cease to be. ByteDance has to die for China to be essentially put in its place, subsided. It will never ever fizzle away, because it needs to be strong for Gog and Magog. Not Gog and Magog, but Armageddon. the kings from the east, they still gotta be strong. Our Kim Jong-un, Xi Jinping, they still gotta be strong for the Armageddon army, but they cannot be so strong so as to become a superpower. The superpower must move over to Europe. We've said that. So, now that we've spoken that, God is gonna kill ByteDance. Because ByteDance is literally all of our wolf that is trying to eat Little Red Riding Hood. It's trying to eat us all. So it can be the be all and end all. And then replace the reserve currency, that's the US dollar, with whatever they want to replace there as bricks. I told you the bricks rock is going to be pulverized. I told you of a dream where the Lord showed me a brick, like an actual brick, like a stone, being pulverized. And that was the Lord showing me that bricks is going to be significantly weakened by something. It's going to rear its ugly head and try to do something strange, and it's going to fail abysmally, okay? Yeah, and God is going to make it fail by first failing China in its endeavors to overwhelm the United States of America. The Joe Biden reign of terror was necessary in order to alert Americans to the fact that they're out here falling asleep at the wheel. To a point, listen to this, of Snoop Dogg was at the Trump inauguration, even though he did some kind of a pantomime, like, skitty Bobby of shooting Donald Trump in one of his music videos, and now he was out here at his inauguration. That is evidence of the changing heart of the American citizenship, but they're not yet here. Concerning what China's actually about to do to their country, but they're going to wake up from their slumber, and they're going to be enabled along by Elon Musk. Listen, you know what, I really need to be done here. I'm exhausted and I've got a big headache. Okay, Mamela, this is what's good now. This is where prophecy comes in. This is where what Jesus Christ showed me. So China, whatchamacall this thing? Not China. Whatchamacall this thing? ByteDance was closed. Not ByteDance, TikTok was closed on the 19th. Americans went awry. Apparently others called 911. Apparently people out here like had seizures and hernias and it was like a whole ER emergency room issue. For 13 hours with TikTok being switched off, Americans acted like idiots. They were like, see us swinging on a chandelier, on a chandelier. They were going crazy, like ape. They went ape. The American government, upon discovering this ape thing that's going on, the Americans called on Donald Trump, and listen to this. Their platform was off for 13 hours. ByteDance made a decision to say, America has suspended the service, but we are in communication with President Trump. So they went on right ahead to name drop Trump. That's Xi Jinping out here leveraging his relationship with Donald Trump. They name dropped Donald Trump and said that once Trump is inaugurated, we hope to restore the service of TikTok to your account. We're talking with your leader. Now, that's going to award Donald Trump, more favor with Americans. He's already won a great deal of favor ever since Joe Biden, who really messed up. Now Trump is popular in this last run of his presidency in a way that he wasn't before. And this here ByteDance situation made Trump even more popular. That was God's strategy, to give Trump the boost that he needed. But Donald Trump, just like what the Lord showed me, is going to be the one to eradicate. And not just him, but him working with the liberals. Papa, I told you, the liberals in America, the Democrats, the liberals, and the Republicans are going to come together in concert, in camaraderie, in agreement with one another. They're basically going to let sleeping dogs lie, let bygones be bygones. They're going to reunite and not overtly, not in a way that you're going to be able to touch, taste, and feel, but in the back end, they're going to come together because the ban on TikTok basically made them open their eyes to discover something dire in the American people. The Supreme Court out here ruled to get rid of TikTok, and the American population went ape. To a point of some people calling 911, they literally flooded 911. Emergency responders. They moved over to Red Note or whatever to literally offer China American state secrets. Americans became treasonous overnight because they were told that they're gonna get rid of TikTok. And then Americans started saying stuff like, my government is not me. I am not my government's decision. I stand with China. There were a whole bunch of Americans that went on social media and actually started praising the Communist Party, the socialistic system, and all different kinds of other rubbish that China is doing. Yeah, that happened in the run-up to the ban of TikTok and on the day of the ban on the 19th. And apparently the ban lasted a mere 13 hours. Okay? Because they could not maintain it, otherwise there would have been literally social unrest in all of America. Listen, social unrest happens because there was a hurricane, okay? Social unrest happens because there was an invading army that amphibiously attacked from the ocean. Social unrest happens because 9/11 happened. Social unrest happens because somebody bombed a state monument. Social unrest happens because somebody bombed the White House. Social unrest happens because war is declared on your country and nuke lands in one of your major cities. That can cause social unrest to a point of calling 911, there being disquiet, there being a need for the president to come and speak to people and calm them down and tell them we're taking care of this, we're gonna get the matter dealt with. Social unrest should not happen because a social media platform was removed from a country. After Russia went to war with the Ukraine, they also banned certain social media aspects and certain conversation. And Russians did not take to the streets, did not call their tantamount of 911, and they did not frazzle the hairs of Vladimir Putin. They merely sat down, kept quiet, and said, I guess it is what it is. Our country is at war and we're being sanctioned, and we can't just speak what we want on social media. So our president has spoken. There was never any social unrest in Russia because of silencing of social media platforms. Some Russians indeed accessed certain sites, certain propaganda, certain media using VPN. That's the most that they did. But they certainly did not riot in a way so as to cause an executive decision to be made to restore some stupid Pokemon program, otherwise known as TikTok. What I'm getting at, ladies and gentlemen, is that the 13-hour ban on TikTok has raised eyebrows and alarms. Big fat chunky beebo, 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 beebo on the part of American strategists, the American government, American anything at all. They have basically woken up to smell the proverbial coffee and are like, okay, this is a toothache causing sweetie that my cocaine loving, sugar loving child has been eating, and it's literally creating craters of holes in her brain.